really a lot about what we've been doing in this space on the operating system. And there's a lot that's going on. This has been a very hot topic over the past couple of years. So when we think about application development in particular, what was application development on AS400? Well, application development was RPG COBOL. A number of years ago, as you're well aware, our name was changed to a couple different things. It's been IBM now for nearly 8 years. And now that we're an IBM machine, we are really much more than AS400. We're really much more than just RPG and COBOL. It certainly doesn't mean that those are not the key languages and the lifeblood of many of the things that we do, but the reality is our system has got all of the modern components, techniques, and ecosystems that you need to run virtually anything native on the machine. And there's a lot of really exciting things that are going on when we talk about modernization. Any of the stuff that's on this screen, I have got customers that are doing some of this somewhere around the world in production, actually. So there's some pretty exciting stuff when we talk about people doing cool, new, modern things on our machine. Our Red Book. Some of you may be aware, last year we published a brand new Red Book. It's our modernization of IBM applications, from the database up to the user interface and everything in between. It's a very comprehensive book. It's about 800 pages long, so it's very new, very current. I think it published in June of last year. The link for it can be found right here. We've had to date over 10,000 downloads of this book. So people ask, what's going on IBM? This is certainly a key area that people are interested in, they're being active on, and are truly exploring. So over 10,000 people have downloaded this book, and it's less than a year old. So we're very excited about this particular book and what modernization on our platform is starting to head towards. So when we talk about modernization, there's a number of things that have changed in the world today that's really driving some of these things. The paradigm of the user interface has radically changed versus a number of years ago. 15, 20 years ago, it still was very common to have your 5250 screen to be your prominent UI, and that was perfectly fine. It's not necessarily the case today. Users, customers, clients, developers, staff, they're really demanding to leverage the device of their personal choice, which in many cases is your mobile device. Many customers are really moving towards mobile, both for their applications, for their systems management, for many aspects of their day-to-day interaction with their business. And this is where we've done quite a bit, both within the OS, to ensure that we have the right support for mobile, as well as working with our ISVs to ensure that we have the right solutions available. As a result of mobile and this rapid change that's occurring in these spaces, there's a lot going on in how you write applications. And so agile program development has really become a significant methodology for writing applications. We look at the operating system, for example. Our OS is moved towards a more agile methodology. For years, we only did, every 2 years we had a new release. Well, now we still are having some new releases, but in those in-betweens, we're doing the technology refreshes, which are a short, smaller component of work that builds upon the previous and future deliveries to build an entire solution. So really very much an agile methodology. And so it's a great way to build applications, and there's lots of tooling that is available to help with that. Addition to how you build applications, there's the applications themselves. Monolithic applications really are not how applications generally are written today. applications are being broken down into a more componentized view, where you have your business logic, your data access, and your UI running in separate entities, which really allow you to build upon applications, being able to much more easily maintain them in the future, be able to leverage and reuse, that you can, in theory, be far more productive with your applications that you're working on. All right, enough of the high stuff. Let's kind of dive into what modernization can look like on I. And I'm going to focus on three primary areas. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about database. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these languages, and then the last little bit about some of the UI stuff. So first off, database. Why do we need to be concerned about modernizing the database? And what is some of that stuff? What does that look like? So, modernizing the database, really moving towards a data-centric programming model where we allow the database, which is integrated into the operating system on our machines, allow the database to do some of that heavy lifting. It ensures that your applications, it simplifies the applications because you don't have to be doing everything in the application. So the database can do data integrity checking. It can also, make certain that certain tasks are performed when things are added. So there's a lot of things that can be done. There's security components that can be added down into the database. So for example, if you want to ensure that a user has the proper authority to touch and access a specific piece of data, if you need to do that at the application layer, you may have to update 30 places in the application. Versus if I do it from a data-centric viewpoint, I can update it in the database, and now I have one place that's being updated, one place that's managing those type of things. So not to mention, we've been working in the operating system when we talk about data access and performance. This is where we've been investing in our time, is investing in the data and the database access, through things like SQL and ensuring that engine works amazingly well, and it continues to get better all the time. And if you look at, our continual investment in this platform, over the past several releases, actually going back to vPrivar 2, you can see, and these are just partial lists. We've really invested an awful lot in the database. We've invested in adding all sorts of new components and new features, continuing to build and modernize what the DB2 on I is capable of doing. When we talk about modernization from an application development centric perspective, there's a couple things that I certainly want to point out. 7.2, we added a couple of really major database things. One is this concept of separation of duties. Before, if anyone who has authority to grant privileges, so you're talking about the security and officers. If you've got SecAdmin authority or SecOfficer authority, you start being able to update this. You can update your database to assign people, give them permissions. Those users also have access to the data itself. So not only can they, give authority to the database, they can actually interrogate that database, see the data, and view and manipulate it. And, it raises the question, should your security administrator really be able to be seeing your private data, your credit card information, your tax ID information, things of that nature? I'd probably say no. So this is where that separation of duties comes into place. And in 7.2, we created a new special authority called QIBM DB SecAdmin. And this gives that management capabilities to your SecOffer users, but it doesn't expose the actual data itself. So the data itself cannot be read or modified, and only allows them to assign authorities to the tables. So just a modern way of doing more things with your database. Additionally, our row column access control, this is a really exciting additional layer of security that was added to DB2. It allows you to really control access to a table through either a row or a column, or you can have a combination of both. And it's doing this through either a permission perspective or a mask. So I can actually set a permission for an entire row, and if the user does not have permission to view or look at that row of data, they can't. Or the thing that's nice about this, you can programmatically control what they can or can't do. So this is where, if I'm a user that I belong to Group A, give them permission to see the row. If I'm a user that belongs to Group B, well then let's mask off the column. So for example, credit card information. You probably never want to show that. And so you can mask that and programmatically change it to maybe only display the last 4 numbers. So for example, let's move to an example here. Here's our mask. I'm going to create a mask on my employee column, or it's my employee table, and I'm going to mask the column Social Security number, which in the U.S. is your tax ID number. And if I belong to the user group payroll, well, then I'm going to return that entire Social Security number. Otherwise, I'm going to do a substring, and I'm going to concatenate the letters XXX along with the last 4 digits so that your manager can at least get an identifier as to who this person is. Otherwise, nobody else is going to be able to see that particular value. And this applies whether this database table is accessed through your application, whether this database table is accessed through some form of data analytics, whether that's your web query, whether that's your DB2 web query support, maybe that's Query 400, or any other type of data access that's coming in. These rules apply. So really modernizing how you look at security of your data. This next one would be your row permissions. So I'm going to set up a row permissions on the hospital patient records where if the user coming in is the patient or belongs to one of these particular groups, whether that's maybe drug research or accounting, if it belongs to one of those groups, great. Enable, give them permission to view and access the row of data. Otherwise, if they don't belong to one of these groups, that that hospital patient information shouldn't be viewed by anyone, and so that information would not be returned back as part of this particular query. So really rethinking how you deal with security of your data itself. There is a red paper that was written, shows you how to set it up, use it, gives you some examples, really nice information there on that one. Another new thing that we've been doing when we talk about modernization is modernizing or rethinking how do you get at certain key IBM I information. So if you're in your application and you need to get at user profile information, how do you do that today? Well, you're probably going to write a program, whether it's an RPG program, a CL command, to call some system API, or maybe you might call another CL program of some kind, and it would return to you a whole bunch of data, at which case you will then need to go write some more code to sort that data, potentially filter it, to really get down to the value that you were after as a result of what you're trying to accomplish. Well, one of the things that we started adding about 2 years ago now, we started adding them in 7.1, and we've added a bunch more as well in 7.2, are things called SQL services. And so allowing you to leverage SQL as a more native language to access ILE information. So with a single SQL statement, I can retrieve information, and then leveraging the power that SQL brings to the table, I can sort and filter, find what you're after, and do it in basically a single line. Really kind of interesting. So use cases. Let's talk about an example. So my first example is I want to find out the passwords of the user profiles that are about to expire on my system. I want to find out whose password is going to expire in the next 7 days. So if I were to do that in the old-fashioned way, I'd have to go, open list of users and write a bunch of code. I could probably do it in about between 50 and 100 lines of code to get this information. Well, with this single SQL statement, I'm going to create a select. I'm going to call the SQL service QSys2 user info. That's my user profile information service. I'm going to look for users where the status are enabled, and the password is going to expire between the current timestamp and timestamp plus 7 days. And that returns to me a list of users there in that table. Boom, done. Very fast, very convenient because I'm leveraging SQL itself, which is really quite good at data manipulation. Leveraging and modernizing how you go about dealing with your data and processing it. Here's another service. This service is called our QSys2.user storage. I'm after, in this case, I want to find out the users that are using the most storage on my machine. So who's being naughty and hogging all the resources on my particular IBM I? That's kind of what I'm after here. So again, single SQL statement. I'm going to select by the username. I'm going to sum all of the storage used, so I get a total value. I'm going to then group them by user name, and I'm going to order them in a descending fashion by the storage used value. And then I'm going to return only the top 10 names. And now I have my top 10 list. And you can see the names of the users that are offending, and I can see the amount of storage that they are using on this particular machine. We've got a whole list of services that we've provided. Many within the security information, allowing you to get user information and PTF and SQL. Basically, there's a number of systems management type services. There's also excuse me, some more development-focused ones that are being added on a regular basis. This website down here, our DB2 for services website, is part of our DeveloperWorks link, and we're continuing to add services. You'll see, I don't know, 3 or 4 new services be added to that list in about a month or so when they GA. So really modernizing and rethinking how you deal with your access of ILE information. Another modernization of our data, DB2 Web Query. For our users that are still using Query 400, it works fantastic. I get that. It does exactly what you've told it to do for many years. But DB2 Web Query allows you to reinvent how you deal with your data analytics, your data reporting, and really start to put and move IT out of the data analytics business and allows data analytics to be done by the business people which want the information in the first place. They're the ones that need to get at that information. The thing that's nice about DB2 Web Query, you can do it in a mobile device with dashboards and all the cool little bells and whistles that modern developers and modern business people would expect to be seeing when they're dealing with their data. One of the brand new things that was recently added is our DB2 Web Query Data Migrator. Really excited about this. It allows you to extract and transform and load data from point A to point B. So there are certain cases where you need to be able to move some data. You want to be able to transform it. You want to be able to prepare it for analytics. Maybe you want to hide some of the personal information and then move that into, say, a spreadsheet of some kind so that you can do some reporting or some other stuff with that. And this allows you to consolidate data from multiple data locations, pull that into an IBM I data source, either DB2 for I, or put it into like an Excel spreadsheet, for example. Another use case for this is you could use this as a tool for preparing test data. So if I need to, in order to run tests for my applications, I need data. And if I can use real data, I'm going to have better tests, obviously. But again, we need to ensure that sensitive data is not getting put into even our test data. So this particular tool will allow you to transform that data, allow you to programmatically change what you see so that it's, if you will, safe and secure and cleansed. And then you can basically leverage it in your tests. So cool new support. This has been out now, I believe, for about 3 weeks. So cool stuff if you need to be able to move data from point A to point B, being able to pull data from somewhere else to get it onto your eye, to be able to do things. It was really intended to be help with the data warehouse perspective as well. All right, I've goofed around in the world of database long enough. I need to move on to a few other things. When we talk about modernization, there's so much in the space of languages and tools that I want to talk about. And when we talk about modernizing your code, why is it important to modernize? There's many good reasons. Maintainability, flexibility, simplification, it's more readable, extendability, lots of reasons just to modernize the actual code itself. One of the other real big reasons, and this is one of the ones that I get asked about on a real regular basis. Our RPG developers were generally speaking, we're looking at a more aging workforce. Many of our RPG developers are starting to get quite a bit older. They're considering, moving into retirement. How are we going to ensure that our business can run into the future without throwing away everything and starting over, which is really a waste of time, money, and resources, when there's a whole lot better alternatives available to you. And I'm looking at how do we reinvent ourselves so that the future of application development can learn, know, and love what IBM I is all about. And this is where we've been in the process over the last several years of reinventing the RPG language. And we've been reinventing it to make it a modern business language. If you look at RPG today, it doesn't look much like RPG of 15 years ago at all. It's really moved to have many of the same features, much of the same look and feel that a modern language that people would know today, it would be very, very similar in many, many respects. So we've added some interoperability, ability to deal with Java much better. We've done quite a bit when we talk about XML, being able to parse and create XML natively within the language itself, the ability to deal with SQL natively within RPG. And then there's the real big one that we've been working on over the past year or two, and that's the readability. Really moving RPG away from its column-based origins and moving it into basically a modern, syntactically, and readable language. And so in December of 2013, we added some support into 7.1, also as part of the GA solution for 7.2. we added our free-form RPG support. So now RPG is, by and large, a complete free-form language. There's no longer a need for that /free or /free statements. All of those things are gone. The language now can be written in a very nice stylistic manner, allowing it to be easily read. There's no columns that get in the way as to, well, you need to put this there or something else. And it wasn't just the logic side of the language, the C specs that were updated. You know, that was obviously an important aspect. We've taken the calc specs and we've moved them from what was very column-oriented to a partially free to a full free. And just a side note, the compiler doesn't care. The compiler's happy to look at your code with all three things in it all at the same time. So it's not like you have to have only freeform in your program, although I would highly recommend that. In addition, we've also freed the, several of the other specs that are part of RPG. Compiler options and file definitions. We've opened up data definitions and procedure definitions. So again, you no longer have to have these column-based tags, these column-based, what I like to say, we got rid of the secret decoder ring. You don't need to have a translator to figure out what the heck is this column with a C. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not, you know, sure, I programmed in RPG back in the day, but I moved into modern programming languages years ago. And on the right, oh, declare C max 1,000. So that's a character, and it's 1,000. You know, that makes perfect sense. It's written in a more syntactically and modern manner. Just a customer reference. Really excited. These guys here, we delivered the support in December, and I think I had this reference in my hands like in March. As soon as this guy came out, these guys just jumped right on it. They actually leveraged a tool by Arcad called the Arcad Transformer. And what they did is they pointed the Transformer tool at their entire RPG source library, pushed the button, and had the entire source library migrated from RPG ILE, column-based, into complete freeform. Recompiled the application, deployed it, and everything worked perfectly. So now their entire RPG application is written in freeform. Why was this important to them? Because they needed to figure out how they were going to continue to keep their RPG business logic, which is the lifeblood of their business, viable. Unfortunately, they had a couple of Java programmers on their staff. They didn't have any more RPG programmers. Their last one had retired, and they were having trouble finding an RPG programmer that wanted to come live in the remote location of Texas that they happened to be in. Moving to a Java, their Java programmers, which is what their front UI support was built in, could very quickly, very easily look at the code, understand it, and were able to make the transition. And now really have been enjoying writing RPG because they've started to now understand the value it brings to their program and brings to their business. So changing the way you think about and modernizing how you go about doing things can really change the paradigm as to where you might be able to find your talent going forward. And modern RPG code is a very key aspect to that. But of course, it's one thing to have modern RPG code. It's another thing to use the right tools. Tools are great. Tools are important. Tools are necessary to accomplish many of the jobs and tasks that we want to do. This is a great tool for, you know, tilling a garden. Arguably, that might be a better tool. But again, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, maybe a better tool yet. What's the right tool for the job? So let's dive into tools for just a minute. If I'm going to hire somebody to come build a new room onto my house, And so I'm hiring a carpenter, and he shows up, and that's the only tool he has for pounding in nails. I would ask you the question, will you hire him? Is that who you want to hire to do all of the work? You know, maybe you do, but you might want to question, if I've got thousands of nails that need to be pounded in, do I want to pay that carpenter to pound every nail in by hand? You know, there's the concern about productivity. Is that what I want to be spending my, well, then there's concerns about maybe damage, you know, where the wood gets damaged or thumbs in issues. So I would question, what is the right tool for the job? And if I'm going to hire a carpenter, do I want to hire a carpenter that is only tied to one small tool, or is using all of the tools that are available to them to allow them to be as productive as possible? Because the more productive they are, the less it's going to cost me to build that addition, right? And so what do I want to pay for? You know, you look at the cost from a developer perspective, it's a similar story. Our hammer is SAU PDM, right? Our hammer is cheap. It's $10. Our nail gun, oh, that's RDI. It's US cost about $800. Yet, much like this scenario, your return on investment for your nail gun is a matter of days, weeks, and I could make the same argument when it comes to Rational Developer for I. Rational Developer for I is allowing you to move from this green screen art-based editor into a modern Eclipse-based development tool. This Eclipse framework, this is what developers have been taught in schools for the last 12 to 15 years. This is what they're taught on. It doesn't matter what language they learn, whether it's Java, C, C++, Visual Basic, .NET, PHP, Ruby, they're all using some form of a framework that looks like this, that provides them with the ability to have a navigation, the ability to have multiple source windows open at the same time, the ability to have an outline so they can quickly and easily see data definitions, where they're defined, how they're defined, where they're all used, be able to get to where they need to go, allow them to understand their code quickly. That's what RDI brings to the table, and this is our exclusive for IBM I, RPG, COBOL, and the other I-supported languages like C, C++, SQL, DDM. This is the tool that is for the developer. And any modern developer, this is what they're going to use. Even a non-modern developer, there's a number of things that make this tool so much better than what the old one is. I can see more code. You know, your 5250 window, you're limited to 80 columns by 22 rows or something like that. With RDI, I can have a screen as large as my physical workstation. We've tried to ensure that, you know, some of the SEU-ish things are maintained within RDI because, you know, we want to make certain that look and feel, we don't want to make it too foreign. So we still have that little prefix bar. You know, you can still do copying, pasting using the CC and A. I still catch myself doing that from time to time. A simple thing, say undo, redo. You know, when you're writing a letter in your email or writing something in Word, if you make a mistake, you hit Control-Z, and it allows you to back up changes until you get back to the starting point that you want to begin at. RDI has that through the Eclipse framework. But it's better than that in the respect that I can make changes to my code, I can save it, I can compile it, and if I find out that I don't like the changes that I just made, well, it's no problem. I hit Control-Z, and it'll continue to undo those changes back to the last time I opened this file. So if I open this file and I make 100 changes, I can back up 50 of those changes, no matter how many times I've saved and compiled along the way. A simple but powerful productivity improvement. Some of the other things, syntax checking. In some of the newest versions, new syntax are recognized and diagnosed while editing. So you no longer have to wait for a compile for it to tell you that your syntax are not correct. Certainly, significantly improving the quality of the code that you're writing out of the box allows you to work offline, and you can write code at home or disconnected without having to only be having a compiler to figure out what's going on. Program verifier. I can run a program verifier. Again, the program verifier does not require you to compile, so it's not going to be tied to the IBM at this point, and it's going to also diagnose and recognize certain issues as if it were compiled. So again, the ability to even delve into programmatic issues prior to being compiled. Again, allowing you to write more accurate code and write that accurate code much more quickly. The outline view is dynamic, so it refreshes as you're typing in the work area. I can go into the right side, which is my outline view. I can click on a particular value, and I'm going to be auto-positioned in the left area right to that spot. So I can see where it's what it is. I can see where it's created. I can see where it's used, and very quickly and easily go find and move to those particular spots. Content Assist. It works with both the old syntax, works with the new freeform. You know, I start to type in something. I want to see, okay, I'm typing in a method. What comes after? So I have color. What comes after color? It gives me a list of the options that are there. So I've got a bunch of method names here, or declares. I can see which ones are there, whether it's a date or a length or a decimal position, and I can get the syntax written correctly the first time. There's also some wizards built into RDI that will actually allow you to generate some freeform code. Now, the one thing RDI does not have, it doesn't allow you to convert your old RPG into freeform, but we will allow you to generate certain methods and certain components and procedures using a freeform methodology. If you want to do a conversion, that's where some of our ISVs, business partners, Arcad in particular, as well as Lenoma, provide tooling to allow you to do those conversions. The latest RDI has all the support in for the free-form support. Again, it deals with both. It deals with both just fine. It will even allow you to write System 36 code. You do not need to be an SCU for any reason. Everything you need is part of RDI. Some of the other things that we've recently added to RDI is something called code coverage. The ability to find and understand, I've run a test case, what actually got tested? Do you know? The only way to really know is to set a breakpoint. Well, with code coverage, I can turn on the code coverage reporter, I can execute some test cases, and I'll get a report. And this particular view shows me all the methods, and it shows me the percentage of each method that was actually executed by the test case. I can then change the view, and I can actually go look at the actual source. And you can see on the far left side, there's little red and green marks. And it shows me exactly which line of code was run and which ones were not. Allows me to then go, oh, well, obviously, I need to write a test case to exercise this part of the code. Your quality control people will love this to ensure that your code is working and has been thoroughly tested. Another new recent addition, and this was in the very latest versions of RDI, is something called push to client. So if you've got multiple developers in your organization, the ability to configure the workstation, configure all sorts of information like filters, like templates, database connections. I can then push that information out into a particular folder. That information can then be pulled down to a different client's workstation. I can do it in a manual manner. I can even do it in an automated manner where I can have one person build up this IDE configuration. We push it out to my IBMI, and as each of the other end users connect, these clients get automatically put down onto their REI workstations, and it ensures that all the developers are not wasting their time having to set up these specific components. They're all done, they're ready to go, and everybody's working on the same uniform code tool. YouTube video out there, really kind of cool stuff. A couple other tools I just want to mention. Some of our stuff from our ISVs. We've got both ARCAD and Fresh Legacy. These guys have got some tools to help you in the process of modernizing your monolithic programs and moving them into a more modular componentized view. They allow you to, and here's ARCAD's tool, for example, allows you to see what the data model looks like. Here's how the data resides. Here's all the points that connect the data together. I can look at a flow diagram of my program. I can see in a pictorial view this method calls this method, which calls this program, which calls this service program, and you can see it in a visual manner. You can see where everybody's linked into the database, calling chains, lots of different ways to understand what's going on. Modern tools for the modern developer. Because it's really important, because when I talk about, the future of our IBMI, I'm really talking about looking at modern languages and modern tools, leveraging the modern methodologies, because it's the modern programmer that's going to be key to the IBMI platform going forward. This is where we need to make certain that we have what the modern developer requires so that applications can continue to meet the customers and the business needs. Okay, switching gears for a little bit, I want to spend the last couple minutes talking about some UI type things. Again, a lot of stuff going on in the UI space. UI, you don't really need to explain too much why it's important to modernize the UI. Obviously, it removes the old, allows it to look new. It actually reduces training. If you're putting in more modern UIs, it's intuitive. People don't need to be told how to navigate a modern user interface in many cases. It also allows the devices of the end user's choice to be leveraged. One of the big things in this UI space and in modernization and program in general is some of the open source components, and this has been a focus area for us in the development area for the last year or two, and so we've done some really interesting things here. I'm going to spend a minute talking about what is some of these open source components and why we've spent some time on this. One, the world at large is doing a lot with open source technologies, and this is where, on IBMI today we can do most of these open source things as well, and so it's available, it's there. Some people don't realize it, but the IBMI can do most of these open source things. It really allows us to leverage the community and no longer have to do everything alone and on ourselves. When you look at some of the ecosystems that are provided through things like PHP or Ruby or Node or Python, there's large libraries of frameworks that are available to help you accomplish different things within your application. All of those things run native on I. And in many cases, we've also added a bunch of more native integration points to allow those ecosystems to touch out, manage, and manipulate your ILE, IBMI data in a manner that's consistent with the actual ecosystem that you're in. So if I'm touching if I'm in PHP, we've got toolkits that allow you to access DB2 for I, or to touch a user profile, or access a data area, and do it very conveniently and simply. So a couple of the ecosystems that we've provided, why did we do these? We've had PHP actually on IBMI now for about 8 years. It's been there for quite a while. It's actually been incredibly successful. We've got thousands of users today that are running PHP in production on IBMI. It's allowed us to branch out into really two different areas. One, it allows us to open up IBMI for other applications and projects. So for example, Sugar CRM is one of the most popular CRM applications written in the industry. Sugar CRM runs native on IBMI with unchanged because we have a robust PHP ecosystem on the machine. And so I've got many users that are running Sugar CRM today. Things like Drupal, things like WordPress, hundreds of customers that are running wikis or running blog sites, running on IBMI, leveraging these particular technologies. Very simple to get set up, very easy to run, and they're able to do it in a secure manner and doing it on their enterprise hardware. In addition to opening up an ecosystem for new support, it also allows us to leverage a new UI on top of our existing RPG business logic. So we've partnered with Zend. Zend is the premier provider of PHP in the industry. We've partnered with them to provide a couple different things. First off, PHP is part of your operating system license. So the Zend server for I, it's preloaded on 7.1 and 6.1. You can also go to the Zend website and download it free of charge. And that is because as part of your IBMI OS license, you're entitled to that. And additionally, you're also entitled to two other things because of your IBMI OS license. You're entitled to the Studio. Studio is the Eclipse-based development environment for PHP, but just like RDI. But it allows you to write PHP code. It provides the toolkits that allow you to tie PHP to DB2, data areas, on other IBMI native components. Additionally, we also have this Zend DBI, which provides that MySQL implementation as well as the DB2 storage engine. That's the magic that allows those applications on the previous page, things like Drupal, WordPress, Sugar CRM, to really run completely unchanged on I. In the world of PHP, the language of the database is MySQL. Granted, on IBMI, why would you want to run MySQL when you have DB2 for I? But in order to not have to change your program, if we allow you to talk MySQL but save the data to DB2 for I, now you have a native implementation. And it works really well. That's what this Zend DBI brings to the table. Just by way of reference, a number of different customers that I have worldwide that are leveraging PHP. Like I said, we have thousands that are doing it. This is just a couple that I was able to pull from our IBM references. Both retail, industries, manufacturing, those banking examples that I don't have on here, people that have been leveraging PHP for their front end, and their back end is all RPG business logic. RPG developers, by and large, can quickly and easily move and understand PHP and very quickly become successful with it. One of the other things that we've done is we have this new toolkit. This is our PHP, our DB2, or excuse me, our XML services support. This is the magic that allows us to talk from IBM I to all of these languages, whether it's PHP, Ruby, Python, whatever the one you want to talk about. We've got this ability. It's these XML service jobs that listens for these requests that come in, processes those, and allows you to access programs, call RPG programs, touch data areas, data queue, message queues, whatever it is that you want to touch. This is the magic that's kind of going underneath, and these are some of the things that my team has been working on in conjunction with our friends at from Zend and some other places like our Power Ruby guys. So additionally to PHP, the powerruby.org, or excuse me, powerruby.com, they've got a version of Ruby on Rails that's native for IBM I. This is a production-ready support, allow you to run any Ruby on Rails applications as well as write your own on IBM I. If you go out to the Power Ruby site, they've got looks like they got a new announce coming out here very soon. They've got the Community Edition, which is the free version that they've had now for probably 2 years, year and a half, and they're looking like they're in the process of creating an enterprise edition, and so really excited about the potential and the partnership that we have with these guys as well. The operating system, we've added a few new things here as well. We have a new product called 5733 OPS. It's our open source product. It allows us to deliver new open source components. In December, we delivered Node.js. Node.js is a JavaScript server-side runtime engine. Allows you to write highly efficient websites, especially when things that are working in an asynchronous manner. Now this has been out for just a short few months, but I know I've already got dozens of people around the world that have downloaded this and are playing with it and working on creating applications on Node. In addition to the base runtime for Node, we also delivered the ability to have that native tooling so that from Node.js you can talk to DB2 for I, you can access data areas and message queues and call RPG programs. And so all of that support's built into the tooling. It's all part of option 1 of our 5733 OPS product. So we're really excited about that. Very shortly we have an announce coming up where we'll be announcing several other new things. We'll be adding support for Python, for example, coming up here in a very short distance. So we're really excited about the ability and the components that we're able to add from an open source perspective. I just want to spend just a minute when we talk about UI. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any of this, but when we talk about moving from the 5250 to mobile or 5250 to a web, this is where, you know, we've partnered with many ISVs to help with this particular component of the modernization. When I talk about ISVs, that includes IBM in that light. We have our HATS project. We also have things like WorkLight. There's also many other vendors in this space, Profound, Lanza, Look, Rocket, BCD, that are continuing to do new and exciting things in the UI modernization space. All of these guys, they're the ones that are keeping up to date with the very latest devices. Several of them have got handlers that allow you to write your RPG code and allow the RPG to control the end UI, even the mobile device. BCD, for example, they just came out with their handler recently. Profound and Look, they've had handlers for ages. Really allowing you to very quickly, and in many of these cases, I can move from a 5250 into a mobile device and do it in a matter of a couple of days versus having to rewrite everything myself, which may take months, if not years, to accomplish. So very, very interesting tools. They provide a lot of features and allow your RPG staff to really stay very centric to the RPG languages. It allows you to also pull in to your back-end RPG some of the more modern features that are available due to the devices that are available. For example, GPS location. I can store GPS locations in my RPG code because that's now available through my end client device. And I can pull that information and then store that in my RPG. Likewise, things like pictures. I can leverage a camera. I can send the picture and store that in a native manner on my IBM as part of my application. These tools allow you to very quickly, very easily leverage some of these kind of technologies. They all kind of work roughly the same, just a matter of which technology they use. I'm not going to spend time on this. And here's just a smattering of some of the examples that we have today of customers that are doing this today and are doing it very successfully with some of the different solutions that are available, whether it's PATS, Lanza, Look, Profound, etc. One of the other things I just wanted a quick touch on, as part of the operating system, we've had an integrated web services capability for many years. Our web services engine allows you to put a web service container over the top of an RPG or COBOL program. We've been based on SOAP for many years. Well, in December, we delivered a new component, a new version that allows you to deliver and host REST-based web services. So if you're dealing with web services and you need to do it from a REST perspective, you need the latest HTTP PTF group. You will then have that support available on your IBM operating system. The last thing I just want to touch on, because I know I'm getting close to the time, is Java. We have all the latest versions of Java on the machine. Java 8 will be is available as of right now, and that supports now part of your IBM. You'll need to go to ESS to order that and get the latest group PTF, Java PTF groups. That is available for 7.1 and 7.2. And again, we will be continuing to phase out support for Java 5 as well as Java 1.4.2. You know, and that's not just an IBM statement, that's an industry statement. And the industry is moving away from these older versions of Java. If you do anything with Java, if you go out to DeveloperWorks, we have a page on Java. You want to make certain that you get to the IBM iZone and go to the Java page there, the URLs here on this page. We actually have a page that shows you every SR that's delivered. Will show you any of the CVE, any of the security vulnerabilities that happen to have been come out and fixed. We will show you what PTF group, what PTF those are included on so that you can ensure that you can remain compliant. So modernization, you know, when it comes to modernization, in my opinion, there's really only one thing that you can, only one mistake you can make, and that's not to do anything at all. So my time is certainly up.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you very much for joining.
As always, it's very informative presentation and a lot of good news to the IBM community. So, are you heading for Anaheim this week?
Yes, Saturday morning I head to Anaheim, and I'll be at the Common Conference there.
And you do some presentations as well, I'm sure. So
only 9 of them.
Okay, I will try to visit as many of them as possible. See you in Anaheim, and thank you all for attending. Actually, I recorded this. We'll see if we can publish it. We will come back about that later. Thank you very much, Tim, and goodbye.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Same to you. Bye-bye.